Khamzat Chimaev versus Nate Diaz. It's possibly happening. And if it happens, it would be the stupidest fight in UFC history. And that's in fact, that's in the Bible. So Dana White was recently on a podcast called the Pivot Podcast with the guy from DC and RC that no one watches. Realistically, not even Ariel watches the video itself. Not even the editors watch that podcast in itself. In the intro of that podcast, a bunch of fights were just leaked. A bunch of possible fights were just leaked. And one of them was Khamzat Chimaev versus Nate Diaz. And if you saw this fight and you had the same reaction as everyone else, if you're a normal MMA fan, you're like, what the fuck? This makes no sense. Khamzat Chimaev just beat Gilbert and is now the number 3 ranked contender in the welterweight division, while Nate Diaz is smoking a blunt somewhere in Stockton, California. So this fight makes no sense, and the biggest reason is because of the rank. The ranks make no sense. There's no storyline. There's nothing to gain from this fight from either fighter. Pretty much the reason why this is happening, the speculation behind it, is that the UFC and Dana White are trying to screw over Nate Diaz because it's the last fight in his UFC contract. And the way UFC contracts work, the UFC needs to offer at least 3 fights a year to their UFC fighters. So the UFC, they're not smart. I mean, they're very smart. They're not stupid. The first thing that came to mind is that they are offering this fight to Nate Diaz because they know Nate Diaz is just going to turn it down. We know Nate Diaz absolutely hates and shits on wrestlers and crotch sniffers. He says, you know, I lose decisions to all these guys and they're all bums. They don't actually beat me. He says he only loses when he gets knocked out. So they know that Nate Diaz is going to turn down this fight. And if he turns down this fight, it will extend his contract to 6 months. And since it's the last fight in his contract, and Nate Diaz is one of the biggest stars in the UFC today, even though he has 35 losses in 12 fights, first guy to ever do that. Crazy, I know. Yeah, so the reason they're doing that is because they're hoping maybe in that 6 months when he declines this Khamzat Chimaev fight, they're going to be able to renegotiate his contract and maybe get him to re-sign a new contract. And if he re-signs a new contract, he'll be able to fight Conor McGregor, Dustin Poirier, all these other bums. Not Dustin Poirier, I love Dustin Poirier, Conor McGregor, whatever, you know what I'm talking about. He's going to be able to fight a bunch more times and make the UFC a shit ton more money in general. That's why I would assume the main goal is to get them to re-sign a new multi-fight contract. And another reason maybe is that the timelines don't work out right now for Nate Diaz versus Conor McGregor 3. I think this is the fight for Conor McGregor. 170, you know, he's returning to welterweight. He doesn't want to cut to 155 again. He wants to return to welterweight for some reason. I think he really has a death wish, to be honest. And he wants to fight Usman. Like, what? No one wants to see that. You should not fight Usman. You would die. And that fight is possibly going to happen. They might kick Leon down the stairs in order to make that fight happen. You know, I think that the Nate Diaz versus Conor McGregor fight should be made instead of this. When I saw this, I almost threw up in my mouth. And we all know that the Khamzat Chimaev versus Nate Diaz fight was offered to Nate Diaz after the Li Jingliang beating that Khamzat Chimaev gave to him. Even after that fight, like, why? It's just unbelievable what's happening in the UFC, and it's all a scheme. It's all a plan. The UFC has it all planned out and laid out for Nate Diaz to decline the fight and get him signed, and hopefully, or even get him to fight his last fight on his contract. And the extended 6-month period after declining the fight to fight Conor McGregor, and at least if he fights his last fight against McGregor, it's going to generate the most money for them at the end of the day, because that's how it works. I just said it. And you know, so that's the speculation. The speculation is that the UFC is offering Nate Diaz these fights just to kind of fuck him over. That's another thing, is they're trying to screw over Nate Diaz in a sense, because maybe the UFC knows that there's no chance that Nate Diaz is going to sign another contract to the UFC, because he's publicly said on Twitter he wants to be released. He just wants to fight, and the UFC are offering him just the shittiest fights imaginable, and he's just declining all of them, because as long as they offer him 3 fights a year, he can't say shit. He's just gonna get extended. The only way out of it for Nate Diaz is fighting a guy like Khamzat Chimaev, or, you know, even like Khabib. He declined fights with Khabib because he knew he was gonna get his ass kicked and it was gonna be a boring fight. So they know who Nate Diaz is. He's been in the UFC since he was like 20 years old. He's been around for a minute, and maybe they're just trying to screw him over. Maybe they want him to accept the Khamzat Chimaev fight in order to get released from the UFC, be a free agent, maybe fight Jake Paul in boxing. Those two are talking. They've been talking shit on Twitter to each other, and Nate Diaz knows the proper bag is in boxing. We all know that the UFC fighters get paid peanuts. That's actually the bonus. That's a new bonus. Instead of crypto and cryptocurrency, there's actually cryptocurrency, the performance of the night bonus, and they get paid in peanuts. So that's the way it works. That's just the business model. It makes no sense. What happens if you're allergic? I don't know. Yeah, so maybe they're offering Nate Diaz the Khamzat Chimaev fight just to bring his stock so much down from taking a beating from Khamzat Chimaev, and maybe they give Khamzat Khamzat Chimaev the title shot after Nate Diaz, even though it makes no sense. But realistically, Leon Edwards beat Nate Diaz, barely beat him, especially in that 5th round, and is now fighting Kamaru Usman for the title. That's not official yet, it's speculated. We all know that's probably what's going to happen and what's probably going to make the most sense. I personally think Khamzat Chimaev should have got the next title shot. I don't really care about Leon Edwards. No one cares about him. Not even his mom knows his name. So that's just the reality of it. And then also another reason why this is all happening is maybe Nate Diaz is just so brain dead and so stoned from smoking every day since his birth that he's just declining to fight everyone, and the UFC doesn't even know what to do with him. That's another possibility. They're offering this guy fights. You know, Nate Diaz even said, he tweeted out he doesn't want to fight Dustin Poirier. I'm like, okay, that I guess that doesn't really make sense. That'd be a sick fight. I think Dustin Poirier would beat the shit out of him. But then he also said that about McGregor. That's what was really interesting. That's what kind of is getting me to think more about this scenario, that Nate Diaz is just stupid. He's just stoned. This guy is just dumb. Maybe that's the case. Maybe Nate Diaz is just dumb. Maybe he's just so, what's the word? Stubborn. Maybe Nate Diaz is just stubborn and he thinks he's worth way more than what he actually is, because, you know, he's had those big fights with McGregor, made a bunch of money, a bunch of pay-per-view sales, had the big fight with Masvidal. He's a big star. He knows he's a big star. Yeah, and the fact that he turned down the McGregor fight, or he said publicly that he doesn't want to fight McGregor because he sucks, I think that's hilarious, but that's also just kind of the way Nate Diaz is. He doesn't really care about that bag. Maybe that's a possibility. He just doesn't care about the bag. That's why he doesn't want to fight McGregor. I think that's just the stupidest thing that doesn't make sense at all. That's a very winnable fight for Nate Diaz. He's going to get paid millions and millions of dollars with that pay-per-view, because we know that's going to sell at least 1.5 million pay-per-views in the first 5 minutes. It's live. That's just the reality of it. And it's just crazy because we all thought that Khamzat Chimaev was going to be fighting Colby Covington, because that's what Dana White said at the UFC 273 post-fight press conference, that fight, Khamzat Chimaev versus Colby Covington, makes the most sense because of the rankings. But also a possibility of this, another possibility of why this fight is being made, is because Nate Diaz is being frustrated. They want to screw over Nate Diaz, and maybe Colby Covington turned down the fight with Khamzat Chimaev, because I believe he did say that he does not want to fight Khamzat Chimaev. He's kind of refusing that fight even after the Gilbert Burns fight. I think he said that after he found out that Dana wants to make that fight happen. And I really do think it's the stupidest thing ever. If you're allowed as a UFC fighter, a top 3 guy, to refuse to fight another top 3 guy, I think you should get cut. There should be no repercussions from the UFC. If the UFC offered Colby a fight with Khamzat Chimaev and he declined it, Colby should get fuck all. Like, that's bullshit. You know, if you want another shot at the title, you're gonna have to fight these top 3 guys. I don't think you should pick and choose who you fight. Like, that doesn't make any sense. You want to be the best in the world, fight who the UFC wants you to fight. Best on best. That's what the UFC is. That's why we love this fucking organization. It's not like the shit show boxing is, where, you know, Anthony Joshua is not fighting Tommy Fury because all these boxing promoters have the biggest egos and the smallest penises. It doesn't make any sense and it's stupid. But comment down below, let me know what you guys think. Obviously, make sure to subscribe. I love you all. Chase your dreams.